In comics, Batman was born in Crime Alley, when Bruce Wayne saw the lives of his parents come to an end during a robbery gone wrong in real life. However, Batman was born in the Bronx, and his creators, the cartoonist Bob Kane and the writer Bill Finger, would meet at Poe Park to discuss the character. On a chilly Friday morning last week, a crowd of around 100 friends, family and fans of Batman gathered to celebrate a comic book milestone. The south corner of East 192nd Street and Grand Concourse Avenue was renamed Bill Finger Way. It was the latest acknowledgement of Mr. Finger's role in bringing life to one of the most successful comic characters ever, a contribution that had been suppressed for more than 75 years. It's hard to imagine an artistic achievement more iconic than the creation of Batman, Councilman Richie J. Torres said at the street naming ceremony. The irony here is that even though the creation itself is famous and iconic, the creator is obscured. Our goal is to change that. It's unusual to have this kind of overwhelming response for a street naming, but it is well deserved, Mr. Torres said of the crowd, which included the actor Kevin Conroy, who lends his voice to Bruce Wayne and the Dark Knight in animation, and Athene Finger, Bill's granddaughter. There were also lots of fans, including a man in full Batman costume, with a passion for seeing justice done, even if meant being late for work. I braved the bridge tolls, said Peter L. Brown, who was determined to witness the event. If no one was going to be here, I had to be, he said. Comic book fans are a passionate and devoted lot. They can make sense of decades of complex and sometimes contradictory storylines. Some of them will even roll up their sleeves, undertake detective work and fight to right the wrong. One of those fans is Lenny Schwartz, who wrote a 2015 play about the tribulations of Mr. Finger, co-creator, the man behind the Bat. He was at Poe Park with his wife, Sarah Schwartz, and their daughter, Collie. It was a slow boil, Ms. Schwartz said of Mr. Finger's belated recognition, but finally, here we are. The Schwartzes were down from Providence, R.I., where Mr. Schwartz is the artistic director of the Daydream Theater Company, which produced co-creator. After the show opened, an article in the Providence Journal noted, "It's hard not to watch the unfolding of the ruthless relationship between Finger and Bob Kane, who took all the credit for the comic book series. I love to tell stories about social injustices, and this was one of the saddest things that ever happened," Mr. Schwartz said. Mr. Finger was born in Denver on February 8, 1914. His family moved to the Bronx during the Great Depression. Despite having helped create one of the most enduring characters in the world, the writer died in 1974, penniless and alone, Mr. Schwartz said. The author Mark Tyler Nobleman is also well versed in this episode of comic book lore. His championing of credit for Mr. Finger is chronicled in the Hulu documentary Batman and Bill, which was released earlier this year. Bob Kane drew only a fraction of the stories, and for only the first few years, and did not write a single Batman story in his life, Mr. Nobleman said during his speech at the street ceremony. From the start, he was the sole person credited. Holy fake news, Batman! Mr. Nobleman's quest took years of dedication and lots of allies, whom he calls Team Finger. Superman had come out just the year before, and publishers were looking for more heroes. Mr. Kane had an idea for one, then known as Batman. He turned to Bill Finger, who he employed as a ghostwriter on a couple of comic strips. Mr. Kane's initial concept had a figure in a red suit with a small mask and stiff wings. Mr. Finger darkened the costume, suggested a cowl with pointed ears and replaced the wings with a scallop-edge cape. It was a hit. Mr. Kane went on his own to National Comics Publications, the forerunner of DC Comics, with the concept and kept full credit. In the documentary, Mr. Nobleman offered some Batman history, the possible existence of a contract negotiated by Mr. Kane that would name him as sole creator for perpetuity. This infamous Bob Kane contract has never been publicly disclosed, as is expected, he said. These are big characters, big companies, they have no obligation to share. Mr. Finger's contributions would not be publicly known until 1965. That was when a determined fan, Jerry Bales, realized that Bob Kane could not possibly be writing and drawing every Batman story on his own. Mr. Bales researched and produced a 2-page mimeographed article, If the Truth Be Known, or A Finger in Every Plot, which finally gave Batman's other father credit. Mr. Finger's other additions to the Batman mythos include naming Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, The Batmobile, Gotham City, and Commissioner Gordon. Mr. Kane refuted the claims until 1989, when he admitted in his autobiography, Batman and Me, written with Tom Ondry, that Mr. Finger did not receive the recognition he deserved. Mr. Kane died in 1998. Mr. Nobleman's doggedness in his quest included calling all 500 people in the search results of Florida residents with the last name of Finger. Eventually, his obsessive research paid off, and he found the writer's granddaughter Athena Finger. Her MySpace page, which included a picture of her dog, Bruce Wayne, was a good omen. He felt an heir would be critical to getting DC Comics to change the Batman credit, though she had already been discouraged by previous efforts to make it happen. In 2012, Mr. Nobleman's children's book, Built the Boy Wonder, the secret co-creator of Batman, illustrated by Ty Templeton, was released around the same time as The Dark Knight Rises, the final film in the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogy starring Christian Bale. Before the movie came out, Miss Finger said she was offered a payment from Warner Brothers, which owns DC Comics. A spokesman for the company would not comment on the matter, accepting it would mean terminating all future claims on Batman. Instead, she began telling her story on the comic book convention circuit. "This is what's right. This is what's just," the director and comic book fan Kevin Smith said in a Hulu documentary. On September 18, 2015, DC Entertainment announced an agreement with the family that recognized Mr. Finger's significant contributions to the Batman family of characters. The next month, the credit line Batman created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger began to appear on comic books. It was also included in the 2016 film Batman vs. Superman and in this year's Justice League. Mr. Nobleman said he could not be more thrilled with the developments and talked about them at that Bronx street corner, near where the magic happened. Bill Finger made history. Team Finger corrected history. Now the Bronx takes the lead in honoring that history by installing this sign, the first memorial to a superhero creator in New York, the superhero capital of the world. Ever the Crusader, he ended on what may be his new mission. Next step is a statue. Stay tuned, Batcave fans.